moving on to something hopefully a little bit more lighthearted. Let's talk about Japan's influencer infestation. They have a problem right now, which is YouTubers going over there, and some native Japanese YouTubers as well, acting like prats in public and disturbing the public peace for views and hate clicks. I'll talk about this more in a moment. First, Islander magazine still on sale. You can get yourself a copy on the website and the links that will be below this video. It's still in pre-order stage, so you'll be able to get your copy at the end of June. That's what we're aiming for. And it will be a limited print run. So get them now, because they'll only be around for a very, very limited amount of time. So
there's a couple of pieces in there by that Bodade fella. Very, very good pieces. Spot on. The takes are just...
Many people are saying.
Yeah. Many people say he's terrific. He's the best. You never read articles like it. Anyway, so I was inspired to do this because PewDiePie, who I don't really watch anymore, because essentially since he moved to Japan, as far as I'm concerned, and he said it himself in various ways, that he doesn't really post very much anymore. He's basically retired.
Well, he's got kids now.
He's got a kid. He's married. He's living in Japan.
God bless him.
Somewhere peaceful where he doesn't have to put up with all of the rubbish that he probably had to put up with in Brighton. I'm sure he wouldn't say so himself, but he said in this video specifically that Japan is a place where people go to escape others' bad behavior. Clearly what he was doing. So I kind of feel like I'm intruding on his personal life now if I watch videos that he uploads, because a lot of them are vlogs. But this one was particularly interesting because it got a bit of traction, because he was calling out the big problem with Japan at the moment being that foreign YouTubers are coming over and making dicks of themselves in public, screaming, shouting, hollering, pulling pranks, in one case trying to essentially rob the public transport system by trying to get from one end of the country to another without paying for public transport the whole time. And he brands it an infestation because these people know that Japan, and you've been there so you can confirm this, is known as a place where everybody is polite and respectful. There is a strong sense of public behavioral standards and a culture of kind of reserved politeness. Would you say that that was your
experience? And high trust, right?
High trust as well.
They're essentially the English of Asia before obvious recent population compositions have changed how the English behave on public transport. Japan are very polite, very welcoming, but they expect you to abide by their standards of public decency, for example, not making a noise nor a mess on the train, not inconveniencing other people. They have similar escalator etiquette as we used to in Britain. If you want to walk up, you go on the left-hand side. If you want to queue, you go on the right-hand side. So they have a sense of propriety and a sense of proper procedure. And I really appreciated being there. It's very safe, very low crime, very clean, very quiet. If it weren't so alien to me, it would certainly be one of the places I would look at were I have be forced to flee the UK. And so I couldn't imagine going there and not treating it with anything but respect and reverence, because if I wanted to go there because I appreciated what they had, why would I want to ruin it for myself and others?
Well, clearly you're not desperate for clicks. You're not fishing for clicks. You're not a scumbag with no morals and no respect for other cultures fishing for easy hate clicks.
Thanks, Harry.
Because that's what... You're welcome. You're welcome. Take that as a compliment. Low bar as it is.
The bar is in hell.
You're not pond scum.
No, I'm not Logan Paul.
Yeah. Well, we'll speak about him in a moment, because he's mentioned in this, and I wanted to highlight that he's probably, as far as I can tell in this timeline, where a lot of this started. But so there's a few things that PewDiePie highlights in this video. One, the Japanese police or military, I forget exactly which one, did a drill at the beginning of last year in March where they simulated YouTubers trying to break into a base to live stream. So the actual authorities in Japan are treating this very seriously because people are trying to pull extreme pranks. They want to make sure that if they go way too far that they're prepared for it. They have branded streamers terrorists because of the activities they've been taking part in. And also, because of YouTubers and tourists going to particular places, they're actively making Japan worse, because there's a particular convenience shop called a Lawson's that has a very famous view of Mount Fuji behind it. And too many people go there as tourists and YouTubers to get footage of it, take photos of it, that they block the road. So what Japan has decided to do is say, all right, you don't get it. You don't get the view anymore, and they have put up a big white barrier blocking the view of Mount Fuji. So a beautiful natural view that's quite famous has been ruined because a load of tourists and YouTubers have ruined it for everybody else. That's what happens when you encourage, and YouTube certainly does encourage, this kind of poor behavior, because this is a trend that's been going on for a long time, and I will be mentioning some of them. So it was in this video, it's been reported on in here. So it says in here, Shellberg, PewDiePie's name, pointed out an anti-terrorism exercise that Japan's police and self-defense force orchestrated a year ago, where they simulated an incident using the scenario of troublemaking YouTubers attempting to intrude on an SDF camp. Footage taken of an exercise shows actors holding up selfie sticks and spraying officers with fake spray paint in faux pranks while law enforcement attempts to push them back. On top of that, and here's another example of how they're ruining Japan just by their presence and bad behavior, Japan also restricted access for foreigners from certain streets in Kyoto's historic Gion district, famous for its performing geisha and maiko, to curb antisocial behavior.
I saw that when I was there.
From visitors. Really?
Yes. So the geisha will walk through the back alleys, and a lot of the reason they get harassed is either for selfies with people walking up to them and incurring on their personal space, or because of the reputation that some of the geishas have had as concubines, and so they get untoward propositions from foreigners thinking they're prostitutes.
I didn't know that second part, but I do have an example later on of what you're talking about, the first bit where people are basically trying to harass them into selfies, take footage of them. And you watch it happen and you think, don't do that. That's terrible behavior. Do you see yourself doing this? Would you be happy if somebody was doing this to you? It's absolutely appalling behavior. I don't know who raised these people. If they were raised by anybody at all, who knows, maybe absent fathers. I do know about the Paul brothers that their father is not to my taste from when I've seen some old videos where they were all collaborating together. But to go on to the Paul brothers, Logan Paul is quite famous for his exploits in Japan. You may remember at the beginning of 2018, there was a particular video that came out where he was in Japan and he went into a notorious forest, which is notorious for people going there to what's the term that YouTube will allow me to say? End their lives. Would that be okay? Yeah, people go there to end their lives. It's obviously a harrowing place to visit, and he went there and discovered such an incident and decided to film his reaction, and then went through the whole process of having the video edited and decided, yeah, I'll put this out. This isn't horribly disrespectful to the person who did that and to anybody who may have known this person. And nowadays, Logan Paul on his podcast can
have been
have a
to
laugh.
Japan, so the day that I do go to Japan, I think I'm going to try to run the marathon with my
I never
with my
been
cousin.
there either. Have you?
What?
Oh, it's just a funny in-joke now. It's just a funny joke. Logan Paul filmed someone's dead body in a really disrespectful way, put it out, and then made the worst apology ever. But it's okay, because he works for WWE now. He's got his drinks. Yeah, he does. Sadly, he's quite good, but I don't forgive him. But, you can make a joke about it, Logan, but it's terrible. It's terrible what you did, and you shouldn't have been forgiven for it. And even in this video, which I found looking all of this up, the editor who edited the video, who should have also known better, his life was basically ruined by it. After the video came out, he lost friendships, he lost relationships, his girlfriend broke up with him. Lots of bad stuff happened to him, and he's talking to Logan on this, explaining it all, and Logan's just sat there in silence. And then he basically says, I made a documentary trashing you, but then didn't release it, but I go back to it every so often as an emotional catharsis. But, it's all in the past now. The guy ruined your life. Because of this guy's awful judgment and poor behavior, he ruined your life. And you're just like, oh, well, it's in the past now. Okay, all right. But one thing that people may not remember about Logan's exploits in Japan is that before the whole forest incident, he was putting out these vlogs where he behaved appallingly. And here's just a few clips of the vlogs that he was putting out there. And once again, this seems to have been what's led to people going there and encouraging this bad behavior, because it gets hate clicks. And I hate to broadcast it, but this is just a reminder of what was
I
going
just
on.
gotta be careful to not like disrespect the culture, because Logan, Japan is all about the respect. So I gotta take my chotch levels and bring them down. How far can we take this? What happened? What did he do?
No! I'm sorry, the filming.
Oh, it's the film. Oh, it's the vlog. You know how it is in Japan. They're all about the respect. Now realizing why they tried to arrest me last year. It's the same shit. Oh, don't worry about me. I'm just a vlogger. Just getting content. Respect. Follow me on Instagram at Logan Paul. LoganPaul.com/shop.
Gotta be careful to not like disrespect the culture.
The Game Boy Color.
This part's pretty annoying.
Excuse me, sir. The game seems to be malfunctioning. Mucho broken, though.
I think that's about enough. And he goes on to do things like throw Pokeballs at people, throw fish at people. But, I mean, you could tell from the reactions of the people around him, that's not on. That's just...
I'm actually pro frontline conscription for him.
Yeah, for him. And that's not the kind of behavior that you would want. And like you say, in a high trust, respectful culture, you know that you don't do that. And you only behave like that because you know it's bad behavior.
You're actively exploiting the goodwill of the people for whom you're meant to be a respectful house guest.
Yeah, it's not good content. You're making Japan worse. And I say this because Japan is a culture that I do respect. It's far-flung in East Asia and whatnot, but they do seem to have some cultural similarities between us Brits, and I respect the fact that they've been able to maintain, even in the expansive technological society that they live in, a firm grasp of their own indigenous culture. And I respect that, and I respect their cultural output as well. So to see somebody just go out there and spit in their faces, it disgusts me.
Not that I'm making any excuses for Logan Paul. But he's just young and dumb and callow and self-absorbed and desperate.
Well, I didn't do that.
No, nor did I. I'm not making an excuse for him. I'm saying that's what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe when he's older, in his 50s or whatever, he'll look back on that and cringe. I don't know. But
I think he might already
no
do,
excuses.
but again, it seems to be just like, oh, you could just make a little joke about it now. It was obviously terrible and I shouldn't have done it, but now it's just a laugh. Oh, who cares?
Yeah. Why go to Japan and do it? Do that in America if you want to do that.
Because if you went to certain neighborhoods in America and did that, you'd be shot.
Well, yeah, and also because you know that in America, you're not really stepping all over and spitting all over the standards and the culture in the same way that you are in a place like Japan. And since then, there seems to have been a massive influx of people going over and behaving like that. The most famous one from last year is probably this guy, the Johnny Somali guy, who is abysmal, awful, and behaved, again, terribly. Let's see what he said. The live streamer filmed himself approaching random locals on a train and saying Hiroshima, Nagasaki repeatedly. At one point, Johnny announced to the train, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, we destroy it because you ends don't know how to behave. A Korean-American man approached him and said, you're being obnoxious, why don't you leave these people alone? Undeterred, Johnny Somali continued, saying to this guy, we'll do it again, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, you understand. So if this guy is wondering, like why it is that the Japanese police and authorities might be branding streamers and YouTubers like himself as being terrorists, it might be because you're going on a train and essentially saying, let's bomb the train.
Well, not just that, you're announcing your intent, not that you have the power to do so, but to commit genocide against the Japanese. I think they might be a little perturbed.
Yeah. He also would harass people in the street, and I won't play this clip because YouTube will flag it. But one of these guys that he harasses in the street, who appear to be foreigners themselves to Japan, they look like they might be European or American. They end up just knocking him out and his friend that he's with. And in the background, you can hear all of the Japanese people around them giving a little round of applause. And then he also decided to play pornography audio on a train. Again,
let's not play that one as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to play the audio for that one. But
speaker, okay.
He's just walking around with the speaker.
He should be in prison and never let out.
Well, the thing was that he did get in a lot of trouble and he did get arrested because he took it a bit too far. Not that he hadn't already taken it far, because he decided to trespass on a hotel construction site and he got arrested as a result of that. And people thought that he got deported. And I'm sorry to break it to everybody that he was not actually deported. He was taken to court where the prosecutors were after a fine of 200,000 yen, which translates to about $1,400. And in January, he was fined for that amount, but the trespassing charges against him were dropped, and he seemed to leave the country immediately after. Now, PewDiePie...
He looks so obnoxious, just at a glance.
He is.
I haven't seen any of these clips or whatever, but he just looks like a douchebag.
Not to encourage any particular kind of behavior of how you should behave towards people like him, but perhaps in one circumstance I might have been applauding somebody that I've just mentioned, shall we say. But PewDiePie called him out, said that he was obnoxious, said that he was another prime example of why the Japanese are branding these people terrorists, because it's awful behavior that you want to stamp this out immediately. And he decided that I'm going to try and sue him. I'm going to try and sue him because, let's see.
Wait, sorry. This Johnny Somali wants to sue PewDiePie?
Yes.
Or the other way around?
Just good luck. Just good luck.
Isn't PewDiePie insanely rich?
Yeah, he's the most subscribed to individual YouTuber in history.
Seems so. I've never really watched... I've watched a few minutes of PewDiePie a few years back, but I never followed him or watched him particularly. But I knew he was one of the biggest of all time, so surely he's absolutely rolling in cash.
Also, there's zero grounds for defamation there.
Yeah.
Like he's saying, don't be a criminal, you criminal.
Yeah. But, of course, Johnny Somali, who goes under the handle Rabbi Somali and has a Star of David next to him, so I don't know if he's actually, like, Ethiopian Jewish or something, very strange, has now decided to pull out the old faithful by just calling him a racist, by saying that, oh, well, he called me a terrorist, that might have some racial undertones to it, and throwing out the classic one of calling him an anti-Semite because PewDiePie made some spicy jokes.
You said you were going to bomb people. What?
I don't know. I don't know. So this is this guy, and also immediately after, it would be especially funny if it turns out that he's some kind of Ethiopian Jew type, unless, of course, it might just be a joke that he's got all of that, because immediately after, he went to Israel and got arrested there because he started harassing the Israeli police, and he got beat up there as well.
Oh, harassing a female police officer. Oh, right. Okay, that's, wonderful.
Yeah, that's a genius idea to do, isn't it? But once again, the bad behavior is being encouraged by the fact that they're doing it on purpose so they can get hate clicks. So if there's one thing you can take away from this segment is don't watch this and don't give these people attention. I know I'm technically doing that, but sometimes you need to let people know so they can avoid it. Not all publicity is bad is good publicity. Sometimes bad publicity is just bad publicity. And hopefully your entire career is destroyed and you have to work flipping burgers for the rest of your life because you're a scumbag.
Plus, there's this thing, isn't there, of how to act, how to behave. I said this yesterday on the podcast. You can act in sort of a small-minded, childish, petty, mean, stupid way, like this guy, just a douchebag. Of course, you don't have to. You can actually try and be normal. Just try and be productive.
Maybe even try and be virtuous.
Right.
Old-fashioned as it may be to say these days.
Grateful for the host nation to show you a beautiful culture and keep you safe.
Yeah.
It does mean he's made it clear to the whole world that his inner core, his inner being, who he is something gross and mean.
But some of the other examples is that here's basically an example of what you were talking about with the geisha, where somebody caught this on video. Look at this.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Rude and obnoxious tourist.
Someone with an abundance of grace versus someone with obviously no physical grace or actual grace in any sense.
No whatsoever.
A little troll versus something beautiful.
Yeah, just leave these people alone. She's getting on about her day. She's not there for your amusement or entertainment. Don't do this. This is terrible, rude behavior. And wherever she is from, and wherever anybody else who behaves like this is from, you are giving the rest of us a bad name. Because with all of this bad behavior going on, I wouldn't be terribly shocked, or I wouldn't be disappointed if Japan just went, no, we're going back to closed borders, like we did for 200 years. We'll just, no, we don't want any of you here because you just make it worse.
But the wonderful thing that I experienced is that if you were polite and deferential and attempted to learn a couple of shorthand phrases, they're quite accommodating to the gaijin. They like it if you are engrossed in their culture. And so, I'd be because I plan to go back out there this year because it's so wonderful. I would be sad if, because of dysgenic little weirdos like that woman behaving as she did, I was treated with a degree of unwanted suspicion. Like, it'd just be.
I wouldn't blame them though, even if it is targeted against
it's just
you.
such a shame.
Giving you bad experiences, I understand. And there's even more people going to restaurants and being. There was one thing where YouTubers were going into sushi restaurants and licking the sushi as it was going along on the conveyor belt. These people, whoever they are, they're trying to travel across Japan for free, as I mentioned earlier. One of them, not one of the people in this image, but one of the people trying to do this, because this is a few YouTubers trying this challenge, which is just breaking the law, committing crime, all at the same time. One of them managed to get himself arrested because he got on a bus, and when he was getting off the bus, he refused to pay 18 yen, which must be what? That's like 10p.
Nothing.
And got arrested for it because the bus driver sensibly said, well, if you're going to break the law over something so incredibly petty, well, I'm going to get you arrested then. Because in a high trust society, the whole point of the high trust is that you understand that punishments come if you don't behave how you're expected to. That's how these things historically have been reinforced. And I think that some of these people are forgetting that, like you experienced, they're really nice and they're really polite, but also they don't want to put up with your rubbish. Yep. They don't want to put up with your nonsense.
Should never have to.
As they shouldn't. And it's happening in other places as well now. So this guy is one of the people who got knocked out alongside Johnny Somali. And he decided to go to Thailand and disrespect some of the locals.
That's a bad idea.
He knocks over some rubbish, like a rubbish bin, as he's walking through the streets, and starts trying to harass the locals. Like, he squares up for a second and he goes, "F you ends, I'll F you up if you try and come near me." And as he's walking around, he hears them all start to harass him back, and he turns around and there's like a little group of them. This is all caught on camera, and he immediately backs down. Because it turns out he's a coward. Well, as all of these people.
In Thailand, you can be sent to prison for criticizing the king. And you can be sent to prison if you're reading someone else's criticism of the king in a news broadcast. So I wouldn't go about thinking that the anarcho-tyranny of American law is in effect in Thailand, my friend. Bad idea.
There you go. So if there's one thing you can take away from this segment, it's that if you are a YouTuber who wants to get hate clicks by going to a foreign country and disrespecting the locals and acting like a public nuisance or even a menace, don't. And if you get the chance, don't watch any of this stuff. It just encourages them. Leave them alone to live their tiny, pathetic lives and let them fail and become burger flippers or completely destitute, if possible.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame the Japanese if they go back to having, like 20 Dutch people and that's it. We're allowing
the Dutch, they behave themselves.
1 in, 1 out, maximum of 20 Dutch.
I think there was a Welshman at one point as well. Yeah, back in the day, he became a samurai. That's it. We'll let in a Welshman and a few Dutch, and that's about it.
Yeah.
I hope you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters. And if you want to see more of what we're up to, you can check out Common Sense Crusade, Calvin Robinson series on our website. And if you want to see what we're doing more generally, you can also follow us on Twitter.